Hey there, and welcome to episode 16 of Omega Male. This is actually only the second episode available on video here on YouTube. I'm super excited about that. I'm your host, Dan McKenzie, and I couldn't be more excited to share this particular conversation with you with the incredibly effervescent Alison Armstrong. Alison is a renowned thought leader and speaker and author of The Queen's Code and The Amazing Development of Men, among many other books, creator of the Lux Relationship Course. I had such a great time talking to her. She is, as I say at some point in the interview, I think that she understands men better than pretty much any man I've spoken to, which is no small thing. But she's brilliant, she's inspired, and we had a great flow. Here's a few words about her career. Alison's exploration of human behavior began in 1991 with her decision to study men, to find out how I was bringing out the worst in them, and hopefully how to bring out the best, she says. Her success in understanding men naturally led to studying women's behavior and making vital connections between the two. As her work evolved over decades, Alison now illuminates human characteristics that precede and express themselves regardless of gender, age, and upbringing. She distinguishes normal human instincts that compel both men and women to behave in ways that contradict and undermine our own purposes, goals, values, needs, and relationships. Besides fulfilling the need to understand why people behave as they do, Alison offers practical, partnership-based alternatives through her seminars, books, and online programs and media contributions. She's been giving millions of people access to more fulfilling lives, loving relationships, stronger families, and productive organizations. She's a sought-after speaker and thought leader amongst people with the desire to live empowered lives. Her philosophy and approach are referenced and taught by other authors, speakers, business consultants, and therapists. Her live events and over 100 hours of online programs are available at AlisonArmstrong.com. That's Alison with one L, AlisonArmstrong.com. And without further ado, here's our conversation.
The more I know about what you're working on, the better I can serve.
Okay,
And
great.
the only thing I would ask you is what Omega Man means to you. How committed are you to the name of your podcast, and what does it mean?
Okay, that's interesting that you started with how committed I am to it. Well, I came up with Omega Male as opposed to Omega Man. As in kind of in reaction to this terminology that men employ a lot about alpha male and beta
Uh-huh.
male and this sort of
Yep.
hierarchical power structure of men. To me, that seems like a very caveman-y, outmoded way of looking at men and classifying men. And so
Yes.
I really thought about this, and I thought, well, Alpha Omega comes from the Greek alphabet. It's not so much a vertical integration, and in the Bible, it's the Alpha. I am the Alpha and the Omega. And so I began to look at the Omega as the ultimate. It's the ultimate. It's the end of the alphabet. And so maybe the caveman state is kind of when the alpha beta male structure was more important. We're out there beating each other's heads and competing over an elk or whatever. But I think humanity is evolving. And so for me, it's about not one type, which is what the alpha male is, but what is a future paradigm that doesn't prioritize one type of man or even one type of
Mhm.
person, but looks toward some kind of universal balance within the individual? And how can we strive or hold some kind of an ideal like that so that we're moving towards a potential that anybody can embody just by finding balance within themselves? And I think a lot of it has to probably do with the balance of the masculine and feminine qualities. So that's the philosophy behind that.
Oh, it's awesome.
Oh,
I'm just
good.
like, taking a deeper breath and a deeper breath. And are you familiar with a book called Wolf's Message?
No.
You probably, given what you've said, would get a big kick out of it. And it's a true story. And
Mm-hmm.
the author she's considered in the top 5 evidentiary mediums in the world.
Mm.
And and Wolf's Message, um, it's it's life after life. The messages come through after his death, which um, which he predicts. and actually leaves evidence of the prediction. I mean, it's crazy cool.
All right.
And, but ultimately, his message is very aligned with yours, that the future lies in each of us balancing the yin and the yang within us.
I love it.
And yeah, it's completely congruent. And I also love what you said about Omega, because I have women who they idealize alpha male, that they want an alpha male. And I've spoken a lot about that we have human instincts that we won't find in other species, but we also, humans are both predator and prey. And so we have pack instincts and herd instincts.
Hmm.
And so the whole alpha beta is based on basically a wolf pack. And what women don't know about what it means to be the alpha is that you're accountable for the safety of
Right.
the entire pack. And women want an alpha male that then will focus on her and make her the first,
Right.
their first priority. And whenever women say that, I want a man who'll make me his first priority, I'm like, no, you don't. Their capacities are too huge for
Mm.
you to be the focus of. It will drive you nuts.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, so awesome. Yay. Keep
Yeah.
doing you. And I just always want to know more. So I'll follow you anywhere, but if I know what your intent is, then I can be more in sync with you. I can partner better.
Mm.
And I ask, how committed are you to the name of your podcast? Because I've literally met people who have no commitment to the name of their podcast.
Interesting.
It's not doesn't capture their message
Uh,
at all. Like they've drifted away from it, or they're still changing out words. And so it's like, okay, if you don't take it seriously, then I won't take it
right.
seriously. And so
Oh,
thanks.
good. Yeah, I was wondering what was behind that question of how committed I am to the thing, because I thought maybe she doesn't like the title, and maybe my clarification will help. Um,
Yeah, that was perfect.
okay, so what I wanted to say when I thought we weren't beginning yet was just to kind of I wanted to love bomb you a little bit, and I say that facetiously, of course, because I think that's some unhealthy psychological term. What I really want to do is honor you by saying that I've heard a lot of voices in this space of men's work and of personal self transformation, and I find that your insights and the depth of your understanding of men generally surpasses that of any man that I've heard in the space, truly.
Mm.
And I expect that that has something to do with the fact that you not only understand men really well, but women. And I think maybe that gives you sort of like, the 3D perspective that comes with using both of your eyes. There's a lot of men that have a lot to say about men and a lot of profound things to say about men, but you have a depth that is unprecedented for me. And so I've been really blown away by your work, starting with my reading of The Amazing Development of Men, which I recommend to everyone and anyone, and also this course that I heard on Audible, Understanding Women. So I have a little taste of your work with men and with women. Beyond that, your ability to convey the insights that you have in a language that anyone and everyone can understand. You do this with such a palpable reverence and real love for men and for boys and for women and for everybody. It's just your work is really steeped in this. It's really a marvel, and you're hilarious. I mean, you have. I'm never going to read one of your books again because if I can, unless it's not available to listen to, because you convey so much with your voice. You've had me cracking up, welling up, crying a couple of times, and your work really fills me with hope and with optimism for humanity. It's so in alignment with what I'm trying to do, and yet I've learned so much more. When I listen to your work, I'm literally filled with love and gratitude. So thank you for that. I expect you get that. Do you get that reaction a lot?
Well, I was advised about 20 years ago to not read my press. So, um, because I get opposite reactions
Mm,
too. Um, and especially hmm, because I'm not polarizing, right? I don't take one side or the other.
mm,
I propose, what if no one's misbehaving?
mm,
What if there's a good reason for everything you do? What if there's a good reason for everything I do? And and I think like an engineer. My father and my grandfather both have the same brain, and so I'm always pursuing what works.
mm,
Like in every domain, I want to know what works. And I've learned from neuroscience that the brain learns by the perception of a difference. And I learned that way after I started studying men in 1991. And I would discover something about men that blew my mind.
mm,
Like, what? And what was right there was, how come women don't know this? And what came right after that was, well, because women are like this. So the contrast between men and women kicked in without me trying. And so I have ended up studying both at the same time since 1991. And when I finally produced the first Understanding Women, which is the one you've listened to, and it's only half the story because it just talks about women in gathering mode.
mm,
And most women these days relate to being in hunting mode much more of the time than in gathering mode. So some people might call it a masculinization of women. Um, it's not something we set out to do. Women are highly adaptable as the smaller and weaker sex.
mm,
We have an acute perception of what's valued and how to be more pleasing, and and we just, our identities are like, most women will say they have low self-esteem as if they're supposed to have a really strong sense of themselves,
mm,
which most women don't develop until well after menopause,
mm.
which is something men love. They love older women because they know who they are,
Right.
right? And so it happened in this organic way, and even it helped me after couple of decades, it helped me to start seeing not just the differences, but to see the similarities. And we have similarities in certain values that we have, about family, the importance of family and parenting, and children are in fact the future.
Mm,
There's no doubt about that. So what are we going to do to cause a better future by being more conscious parents, for example? A passion of mine. And so there's this contrast, and the differences, and then what we hold the same, and then that's when showed up what's beneath. So what's beneath, like pack instincts, which predators have, and herd instincts, which prey has, and studying natural horsemanship, and then using literally teaming up with horses to teach men and women how to partner with this. A horse is like a combination, because they're motivated by fear, which women are highly motivated by fear, but they live in a paradigm of respect.
mm.
What they demand and seek is respect, which would be a man.
Yeah.
So horses are this combination of a male and female human. And so it's the only live workshop in person that I lead anymore. It's in Canada, and we team up with horses. It's called Core Partnership.
Ugh.
And it's about getting what it takes to be a partner literally in your body. And the other events that I do are all online, because it's so much less painful than where it was in the beginning. I'd leave a workshop having given them everything I had. And 3 days later, I'd have an epiphany about men or women and want to call them all back.
Mm-hmm.
And and so the chance to we had our curriculum all online by 2017, what existed at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And and now because people can do the full Understanding Women online course, which represents us in hunting and gathering mode,
Mm-hmm.
and understanding men and being extraordinary as a man, as a woman. I just keep getting to make the work available. And because I'm not leading live workshops, I get to spend more than 10, 15 hours a month answering questions, helping people implement.
Mm.
Um, Part of our curriculum, that there are free calls that people can come on to ask questions about, okay, this thing I learned about waiting for the well, listening longer to men. How do I apply that to my 13-year-old?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
let me add it, right? And because my my favorite people are my students, right? They're studying. Um, there are consumers who race through everything on YouTube, every product that we have on Audible, which I haven't put one there that's been made since 2003.
Right.
All our current stuff is at AlisonArmstrong.com, but they'll race through it and just consume and consume and consume, but they haven't implemented it. They're
Mm-hmm.
still doing what they do the same old way. They can quote me, but they'll say things that are completely incongruent with what they say they learned.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's just it's why I it's why I'm here, right? I'm a messenger.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about because I care about what works, I'm completely welcome on Christian radio
Mm-hmm.
because I will follow the rules and only married people have intercourse. And we say climax, not orgasm.
Mm-hmm.
And I can just toe that line.
Mm-hmm.
Or one of the things I didn't ask you before we started is, do you swear on your podcast? Because I will do whatever it takes to get through, including cuss as well as any sailor.
Me too. Well, it's funny you should. I mean, you've opened so many tendrils that we could pursue with that. That was a heavy download of so many things. Working backwards, the cussing. First of all, yes, you can say anything. There's no religious or cultural restrictions on my podcast. You can drop F bombs. You can invoke Jesus or whoever. It's funny. I did have a question about that I'm going to get to. But you mentioned the brain science. You mentioned conscious parenting. You mentioned
Yes.
the work, the sort of wolf pack aspect of our, animal nature. You mentioned working with horses, and this is sort of lighting up so many
Mm,
light bulbs for me and it's just the sort of synchronicity of the universe. Literally, just maybe 2 weeks ago, I met a guy who is working with horses in this way, in a sort of therapeutic way, and it was the first time I'd kind of heard of this work. And I'd watched that amazing documentary called Buck. Have you ever seen that movie about the man who's like the original horse whisperer? If you haven't, you should.
I actually have been
You know that
in
guy.
his training.
Okay, there you go.
I've been
Yeah,
in it. He's one of my heroes, Buck Brannaman.
yeah.
He's amazing.
I have a feeling that I'm going to mention stuff to you, and then you're going to say, "Yeah, I know that guy." Um, but yeah. So I get
Attribute.
this. I get and appreciate this universality of your work. And one of the through lines in all of what you just laid down was one of the things that resonates with me the most, which is that there are a lot of concepts that exist in balance. We're talking about people being in balance, but this idea that um, we have the brain aspect, we have our animal nature that's somehow wired into us biologically, and yet there's a spiritual aspect and an evolving part of human beings that's not purely animal. And so when you talk about the contemporary moment of how women, you talked about masculinization of women. So these are things, we have this sort of baseline, base truths that have to do with our, ancient biology and our brain stuff. But then we also have the moving parts of evolution, of cultural evolution, of social evolution.
One thing that I found helps to understand um, is that we actually have two nervous systems. It's been known for a long time. They call it the sympathetic and the parasympathetic.
Right.
And we actually have the limbic part of the brain, what they call the lizard brain,
Mm-hmm.
that is ancient, and we share instincts, not just with wolves and horses. We share instincts with trees
Hmm.
and viruses. And I mean, this is primordial reactiveness
Right.
that is right here. And it was Bill Harris who taught me of Holosync that the limbic brain is always a split second behind the prefrontal cortex.
Okay.
So we've got the crown chakra, right, and the prefrontal cortex, where they call what they call the executive decision making.
Right.
So one way that I think about it is this, and I felt it in my body actually, is impulse. And if you pay attention, you can actually feel your body being pushed towards something.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I'm about to get on an airplane, my body has the impulse to collect as much food and water as possible and
Mm.
anything that would make me warm and comfortable. And it just like walking through the
Right.
airport, it just keeps wanting to, and I have to remind myself, I have enough, I have enough. So like I have a border collie, right? They're considered one of, if not the smartest dogs in the world. And I accidentally taught my border collie to jump up on me and lick my face. When he
Mm-hmm.
was a little tiny puppy, he would crawl up the front of me and lick my face. Well, now, right, as he got older,
Different for a big puppy.
jump
Yeah.
up on me, he actually cracked my teeth. Um, and but in learning about impulse and choice, and this was actually through a really funny series of books
Mm-hmm.
called the Chet and Bernie Mysteries, which is from the point of view of a dog,
Mm-hmm.
that my dog shaking is literally the impulse to jump on me, the choice to not.
Mm.
Jump, don't, jump, don't, jump,
Mm-hmm.
don't, jump, don't. And his body is shaking. And I commend him for it. I praise him for doing what he knows I want him to do
Mm.
instead of what he wants to do.
Right.
And and translate, if you want to bring it into the human domain,
Right.
at one point I had the opportunity. There's a time in my life when I spent a lot of time with gay men and women.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was thrown entirely into the heterosexual world.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was at a conference of many leaders in transformation. It's how I know so many of these people. And I was with a gay man. And I was reminded of how relaxing it was. And then right after that, I was in one of my workshops with two of my heroes of my work, even teachers of my work. And I noticed it wasn't relaxing being with them, even though they're fathers and mentors to me, that there was this vibration
Mm-hmm.
that was affecting my nervous system. And then I realized, oh my gosh, these men are attracted to me. And they're controlling, they're
Right.
overriding the impulse.
Right.
And it had me explore, what is the impulse? Grab it.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Grab it, grab
Yeah.
it, grab it. And they're overriding, overriding, overriding. And I'm feeling this vibration that my new gay friend, he does not have that
Right.
at all,
Right.
because there's no impulse he's controlling around me.
Right.
And of course, my reaction to that, Dan, was, why don't men get credit for this?
Mm.
why why do we think all men are the men who aren't overriding that impulse,
Right.
for whom it hasn't been modeled to override that impulse, which is, if something isn't modeled for us, all we have is 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 the lizard brain, are
Yeah.
the instincts that are installed. That's all we have. If someone doesn't model the override of choice, like like a father who gets angry and
Yeah.
then comes back and apologizes to his children for not having a grip on that and having them be subjected to that reaction. If
Yeah.
it's not modeled, we don't even know that it's possible.
Right.
And instincts are like getting on a train and they'll take you all the way to hell every time.
So,
And men and women literally have opposing instincts,
right.
which is the source of the misery between us.
We were talking about instincts and you were talking about our lizard brain and all that stuff, but you did at one point say crown chakra. And to me, it was a little bit of a reveal that I don't mean this in a religious sense, but I get from your work a sort of spiritual sense, but in the sense of considering the human being as not just a physical pile of atoms, right? And you talked
Mhm.
about the nervous system, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic, but there some aspect that has to do with that which distinguishes us from animals per se. Like there's so much interesting stuff and uh, enriching insights that come from this relationship and comparing us to animals. But that thing that you're talking about, which is the impulse control, like the override mechanism that says this guy just honked at me and I want to throw a rock at him, but really I'm just going to wave and smile and, like whatever it is, or I'm attracted to this woman that I'm talking to, but it's inappropriate for me to make a pass at her or whatever. I'm just going to, let that be controlled in some part of me. Like it's so generous of you to recontextualize that in a way as being something that should be acknowledged and praised and valued rather than like vilified and like, ooh, men are these gross, disgusting pigs. I've been working with this idea that the masculine and the feminine exist as capacities within men and women. I always say that men are the primary custodians of masculinity and women the primary custodians of femininity, but we both have the yin and yang. And in what way is it different for women to navigate their way through the masculine and feminine versus how men are able to or tasked with it?
Ah, okay. You could have gone in a lot of places. I have to fill in a couple of things.
Okay.
Um, Something that many people have expressed that is helpful for them is that the gender hormones kick in at 21 days of gestation. So just been conceived 3 weeks later, these hormones kick in and the body is flooded.
Mm,
So the male fetus is flooded with testosterone.
mm,
And this is why when boys are born, their testicles reflect the amount of testosterone that they've been embodying. And that testosterone configures everything about them.
mm,
It configures their brains, it determines everything about their musculature and their bones.
mm,
And it's odd because testosterone is associated with strength and ought to be because the physical strength of men is it's astonishing the difference between men and women, and most men don't actually even understand.
mm.
And there's a sample of our Understanding Women online course on our website where that's demonstrated. And so I encourage everybody to watch it. It's free. But while testosterone creates this incredible physical strength, it also makes men highly vulnerable.
Mm.
There's much greater percentage of miscarriages of male fetuses than there are of females.
Wow.
So it's almost like it's balanced in the beginning. You're stronger, but you're weaker. And then on our side, we're physically weaker, but we have a higher pain threshold,
Mm,
right?
mm,
And men are built with a lack um, of instinct for preservation. You guys don't naturally preserve yourself for later, where women naturally are paying attention to everybody's well-being. And this is a way that we can complement each other, right?
absolutely.
Um, but then, so the same thing has happened to the female. For 2 years after birth, she'll have as much estrogen as a grown woman.
Mm,
And this is why a baby girl can walk into a room and steal everybody's hearts. I call it an estrogen bomb,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and and so hormones create brain configurations, right? What we call diffuse awareness. Estrogen connects everything to everything. And where testosterone is compartmentalizing and creating single focus, which is the mental state of being committed, which is why I get so mad when women say men are non-committal. That it's the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Women are non-committal, not men. And it and so it makes it like for a woman, if we gave men credit for overriding their their sex instinct, which procreate is the number one instinct for everything on the planet, to do that override of that impulse, women should get credit for any time they can make themselves get to the point. Like
Mm.
we should get credit for that
Right.
because our brain is pulling everything in.
Mm-hmm.
And and so to focus and just answer the question without context, situation, background is almost impossible. So all of this is happening, and then this add to it, Dan, that not only do hormones create our capacities for thought and our thoughts, they also thoughts create hormones.
Mm.
So, for example, if a man is resting and building testosterone, which is the hormone of ambition and sex drive and short-term memory, and so he's building testosterone and he wants to get up off the couch and now get something done. I think she can smell it and she can tell when he's gone from useless to handy.
Mm-hmm.
And then she sits down and says, "Just listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
Could you just listen to me?" Well, all these explorations come in a funny way. Like I was in an elevator with these people who were going to this wedding, and this man said he was going to this museum. Excuse me. And the woman says, "Do you like those?" And he said, "No, I'm just killing time." And I've learned to listen to men literally killing time.
Mm.
What does that mean, killing time? Why would he need to kill time? You're gonna have to cut this.
Take a sec. That's fine. Mm.
So I started asking men, what does it mean to kill time? And one man gave the analogy of, well, it's like when you have something to accomplish, you're ready to accomplish it, but you're a racehorse that and the gate won't open. And you have to wait. And now time is your enemy
Mm.
because you're all
You're
ready
revved
to
up.
go.
Yeah.
You're revved up and you can feel yourself being disempowered.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that women don't know is when a man has built testosterone, he needs to spend it. He needs to get to kill something, build something, solve a problem, help somebody. He needs to do that. And if he doesn't get to do that, there's an enzyme called aromatase that will convert his testosterone to estrogen.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So while you tell him to sit there and just listen and not set it up with, "Could you help me
Mm.
by holding the trash while I vomit this alien out of my body?"
Right.
If you don't set it up that he's helping you, that he's saving you from a state that is really uncomfortable for you and you don't want to be that way, if it's not set up that way, he will be being, if he's trying to just listen, he will be biologically emasculated
Mm.
and he can feel himself weakening. And that is the cause of his fidgeting and impatience
Mm.
because he feels I'm getting weaker and weaker by the moment.
Right.
And that is not a state a man is ever looking for.
No, we don't love that. And this
Never,
is
never, never.
this is so interesting to me because again, there's this duality that I see
Mhm.
in your work and that truly resonates, which is there's first of all delving into understanding these differences as they exist. I remember a while back there was this popular book, Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. I feel like and that was kind of, there was some useful stuff in there. What you're doing is sort of like triple next level of this work, in that there's a compassionate understanding of our differences. And so one component is understanding the differences, from across the aisle, and learning to accept and appreciate rather than vilify. It's so funny how in the beginning of The Amazing Development of Men, you say that one of the biggest mistakes women make is just to think of men as hairy women, and men can do the
Yes.
same thing too. You're just like, so we expect each other, at our own peril to behave like we would.
Yes.
But then there's this element that I also find interesting of not just accepting and understanding, oh, this is this alien being and this is, but how can we come towards each other by developing aspects of ourselves that are kind of similar. To me, that's some of the use of the men having a femininity and women having a masculinity.
Your original question is you wanted to know about how men and women approach the spiritual differently, and how do we become male, masculine and feminine? How do we deal with it? Which is a huge, great question. So I want to bring in a couple different things.
Yeah, please do.
So when you start with the biology, and then what neuroscience teaches us about neural pathways and how they're formed and dissolved, and how we end up with neural highways.
Mm-hmm.
And so you deal with the physical and then interact with parts of our brain, like the pineal gland, which is it is a physicalization of a spiritual,
Right.
miraculous ability to heal
Yeah.
that we actually can get a hold of, and I've used it often. And but one way to think about it, and I mentioned crown chakra because when people are causing themselves to shift into a spiritual state, most people experience it here in the top of the head.
Yeah.
Like when I describe the
Opens
effect
up.
of
Yeah.
happiness on women, the way it travels through the body and then ends up in the top of the head with happy thoughts.
Yeah.
And it's literally a spiritual quality.
Yeah.
Well, most of our highest values, if you think about yours, most of our highest values are literally spiritual qualities. They're
Mm.
qualities of higher consciousness. And so one of the things that I was compelled to reverse engineer, and I learned it from listening to men. And the first one was a man said, "I'm no good until I've had my run." And I started hearing, "I'm no good for anybody. I'm no use to anybody until I've had this." And so they're distinguishing their desire to provide and be helpful, but that their physical body needed something before they could be that.
Mm.
So what is the relationship between embodiment and being? And being extraordinary as a woman and being extraordinary as a man, which is in the second level of our curriculum, is all about how do you take your highest values
Mm.
and literally put them inside your body, because I assert only what's embodied is available to you under stress.
Right.
And our most primitive instincts are embodied.
Mm.
We're born with them embodied. So we actually have to put, for example, compassion. Compassion is a spiritual quality. If you think about, when do I naturally have compassion? Oh, when I slept enough. Oh, when I've been in nature.
Yeah.
Oh, like, and everybody has different answers and there's similar answers,
Yeah.
right? One of my patience is literally a spiritual quality,
Mm.
patience.
Yeah.
And when do I naturally have present patience? When do I run out of patience? Right. And so we actually quantify these things so that every one of us can actually define greatness. What is extraordinary to you that when you be that way, it feels so much like who you really are. You're proud of yourself for being that way. The impact you get to have on people is gorgeous. So how do you cause yourself to be that?
Right.
So, like you mentioned, love, that everything comes through with so much love. Well, because I've spent over 20 years excising everything that isn't love, reverse engineering literally what causes us to embody love. How do we cause love for others? How do we cause love for ourselves? It's on our website under
Mm-hmm.
shop products, causing those loving feelings. It's so simple. It's so simple and magnificent. And so in terms of this masculine feminine thing, I don't use those words very often anymore. They're used in the Queen's Code, and
Mm-hmm.
so many people, I mean, it's an international bestseller, and so many people still need that language.
Yeah.
Mostly in our culture, they have too much baggage and not enough
Yeah.
richness or dimension to them.
Yeah.
But if you think of, so that's why I talk about in terms of instead of feminine and masculine, I talk about gathering and hunting,
Mm.
or then I've even evolved from that to an open state of mind versus a committed state of mind.
Interesting.
And
I sometimes say hard skills and soft skills, or
yeah,
it's like there's penetrative and receptive,
yes,
reflective and
which is,
radiant,
yeah,
all these different ways of talking about these things that are more
yeah,
expansive.
and it's
Yeah.
great to keep finding
Yeah.
ways. And one of the most important things and why I say we have conflicting instincts is in an open state of mind, whether it's a man or a woman, they're going to experience being safe, which when we have a reality of safety is when we're our best selves.
Mm-hmm.
We're not responding to a threat or an opportunity. We're just ourselves. So in an open state of mind, we experience safety through a sense of connection, through
Mm.
connectivity. Where in a committed state of mind, and usually the word secure is used instead of safe,
Right.
we experience being secure in a committed state of mind through productivity.
Mm.
So open versus committed, connected versus productive. And then you put these two opposite oriented people in the same home because of either when they're not working or now when they are also working. And the connective person senses the distance of the single focused productive person.
Mm-hmm.
And to gain their sense of safety, they interrupt the productivity of the committed state of mind in
Right.
order to connect. And the committed state of mind, not only have you interrupted their productivity, you've interrupted their sense of security. And also, as my husband taught me, their sense of peace.
Mm.
They're committed is a peaceful state of mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so we interrupt all that, and then we think men are assholes because we interrupt you in order to connect, and you go, "What?"
Right. Right.
And we expect you ought to be able to go, "Excuse me, just a moment." Yes, dear.
Right.
We have that expectation, which is incongruent. And so, but in terms of masculine and feminine, we actually both can choose. Do we want to be in a productive state, be in an open state of mind? Okay, what gives me the ability to do that? What
Yeah.
puts that in here and in here? And so much of what we try to control, almost everything that we try to control, is out of our control.
Yeah.
But who we are, we actually can choose it and cause it. It is under our control, and including something else you might have encountered in my work. And that is, I mean, I always have these dolphin earrings on.
I can't
They're
see
little
him, but
tiny
okay.
dolphins.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're little teeny tiny dolphins.
Okay.
Because I found out you can't identify a dolphin by the marks on their bodies. Um, because they shed their skin 12 times every 24 hours.
Oh, wow.
And so within a couple of days, a bite mark, which was a way that another dolphin was communicating, has disappeared. And I decided I want to be a dolphin. I want
Right.
to,
Yeah.
I don't want to be recognized by my wounds.
Mm.
I, so I set about reverse engineering. How do you completely restore a human being? Restore them from shame, restore them from hurt feelings, restore them from disempowering conclusions about themselves and others.
Right.
How do you become completely whole again? And so that's the other side, that the part of being able to cause who we are is also to heal and release who we're not.
Right. And
So
it's a daily process, but also a process over time, right? A cumulative and a restorative.
yeah, so I practiced the Sedona method for, I don't know. I got to learn it from Hal Dwoskin, and who's the guardian of the
Mm.
Sedona method. And I practiced it for, I don't know how long now, well over a decade. And because of neuroscience, I literally have releasing highways. I can be completely rattled by something
Mm.
and just think, maybe I should call Lori and do a release. And then, oh, but she's not available. So I imagine doing a release with Lori. And within about a minute, I'm completely grounded again. But but yes, it's both doing it on a regular basis. It's also celebrating it. That's
Mm.
why you have to celebrate awareness. Your brain, this is something Anat Banyal taught me, who's an amazing neuromuscular reeducator,
Hmm.
that she said, Alison, you are not your brain. Well, that was a surprise to me. I'm not. And then she said, your brain works for you,
Yeah.
and you have to tell it what you want from it. And then I added, you also have to appreciate it. You have to
Mm.
admire it. You have to thank it. And so when it shows you where you made a mistake, if you're like, oh no, not that, the brain goes, oh, don't waste energy showing them that. Right? It'll stop
Right.
showing the mistakes.
Right.
But if you see the mistake and oh, thank you for showing me that.
Right.
I want to apologize. What can I do differently? Oh, you're the best brain. Keep showing me it. And so, like women in our workshops, and it's a little tricky for men because you get to watch the Understanding Men workshop, which no men were ever allowed into.
Okay.
And I'm pointing out ways that women emasculate men, diminish men, reduce men, and cause everything they don't want.
Right.
And showing them ways they do it, and I'm having them raise their hand. So how many of you do that?
Mm.
And okay, I noticed about the notice dance, because you want your brain to keep showing that you're doing the thing that's causing what you profess to not want.
Right.
And without awareness, I mean, that's what happens. There's a reason passing the crown chakra:
Right. Yeah.
impulse, awareness, choice. I've never said that way before, by the way. I've never even brought up the crown chakra before in that process until today. That must be you.
I love that we got something new on the books just through this conversation. So yeah, there's so much again that you've said there that I want to address. About the embodying process. Sometimes before I'll do a podcast interview, I'll just sing for 5 minutes because music for me is a way of moving stuff through my body and getting grounded in my body. Um,
Yes.
so that all resonated. And there was another thing you were saying. Well, two things. One was when it comes to danger, I tend to. I have a son, and he's just about to turn 7,
Mm.
and so my instinct is to have him learn how to deal with danger His
Yep.
mother's, my partner's instinct is to just remove the danger, right? So she's got this protective thing where it's like, let's
Hmm.
just keep him away from the danger. And my
Hmm.
contribution is, but let's let him, if the danger comes, let's let him know how to deal with it. And so between the two of us, we have this very complementary aspect. And what I wanted to say further about that in terms of our conflict, because you mentioned about, how men and women can dip into conflict if, she wants to connect and he's being his producer self and then gives the asshole response. One thing I've just learned from her, she comes from this Italian American background where there was just a lot of flare ups and like loud arguing, but letting go immediately. You said about this shedding the dolphin skin. She's always been able to just kind of like be like incredibly seemingly mad, and then 5 minutes later, totally connective in a way. And I come from this very repressed, waspy East Coast. Let's hold a grudge for 10 years and not talk to each other. And just if somebody offends you, you have to stay mad for a day. And so there was something about this ability to let things go and not become, not just in the longer term be your wounded self and be identified by your wounds and your pain and your trauma, but even making it a daily practice to be able to shed in some way. And that's something that I learned from her. And it was one of those things where I didn't look at it as a male or female thing. I don't know if it is. Maybe you can enlighten me on that front. Is there a male female thing about like the man, I've now been, dishonored and I have to like stew in this, and she just can blow up and then move on from it? Or is this a cultural thing that has more to do with our waspy versus Italian?
Well, first of all, I would assert that nothing culturally takes hold unless there's the receptor side of instinct. In
Okay.
other words, if there isn't a loop, it can't get hooked.
Mm-hmm.
And in general, um, if you're oriented around productivity, then you will get the most the anger spectrum will escalate the most quickly with the perception of disrespect,
Okay.
because your productivity depends on how respected you are.
Right.
If you're not respected, you hunt alone and you
Mm-hmm.
bring home bunnies and small deer. You do not get to go after the mammoth. So respect is huge, and there's a fast, fiery response, whether it's suppressed or not,
Mm.
to the experience of being disrespected.
Yeah.
And it's in the modern, the current understanding women course online, we teach how to restore your partner from them experiencing being disrespected,
Mm.
which is very hard for women because we think you could only have been disrespected if I have the feeling of disrespect in my body, and I don't
Right.
have that feeling, so how could you be disrespected? A woman in general will have that huge reaction that ends up in what we call a rage monster from having her
Her
feelings
feelings
hurt,
hurt.
which, as you know from understanding women,
Yeah.
comes from how we interpret what happened. And I mean, it's huge, and we can hold it forever. And um
So you give the ouch, just to interrupt and jump in because I love this part of that workshop. You have this ouch button thing, right? Where the woman, it's like the shortcut,
the
and
shortcut
where the woman
out.
says ouch, and the
Mhm.
man's opportunity is to say, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. And it's sort of a magic pill of sorts. So is there, when the reverse has happened, when a man has felt disrespected, is there a process that's similar? Like,
It's exactly like
what's the
that.
shortcut?
It's exactly like that. But to make this whole,
Hmm.
it's and oh my gosh, I've spent so many hours talking to men about that. Like, how can I say I'm sorry I hurt her feelings when I didn't?
Right, right. I heard
And
that.
so while a woman can't has a terrible time saying I'm sorry I disrespected you when she doesn't feel disrespect, men are sure that they can't have hurt someone without the intent to
Right,
hurt them.
right.
Men have a huge belief in intent. well, you don't have to intend for her to end up trashed.
Right.
And we don't have to feel disrespect for you to be in a rage, a survival rage. You're going to die because of the lack of respect. And so this is where this huge victory of human spirit, where we honor the other person's reality
Mm.
so that they can be recovered. We say, I'm sorry, I hurt your feelings, and we mean it. When we know that what really hurt their feelings was how they interpreted what we did, and we didn't do it for that reason.
Right.
We know that, but she's blind to it right now.
Right.
And the way one man works it out is he says, well, I just figure if I wasn't born, it wouldn't have happened. So
Right.
I'm sorry I hurt your feelings.
Right.
And as a woman, to honor that in his world, he was disrespected. My husband was the second maddest he'd ever been at me in 28 years because I rented a Mitsubishi instead of a Ford. I tell the story in
Interesting.
Understanding Women. Yes.
Okay.
And and part of it, Dan, is that men don't know that women don't know that when we ask you, what should I do? If you're willing to answer the question, to say you should, that you are giving us a lifetime of knowledge and sorting things by information. And when I asked my husband, should I rent the Ford or the Mitsubishi? He said, I think you'll be happier with the Ford.
Mm.
Now, this was a man who had spent about 25 years paying attention to what made me happy. He was the
Mm-hmm.
expert on what makes me happy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I have a prejudice against Fords, and I wanted to try the Mitsubishi.
Uh-huh.
So I completely disregarded the time and energy and commitment that he put into answering that question.
Mm.
And I didn't own it. I could have said, if I'd known it, thank you for your commitment to making me happy. I don't know why I don't like Fords, just on principle. And
Right.
I'd like to try the Mitsubishi.
Right.
Um, what do you think? Right? And then he would have been honored, he would have been
Right.
respected for his effort, and I could have done what I wanted to do. But I didn't even know that was happening.
Mm.
And that's how I've learned everything. Like I've learned everything by what doesn't work, by
Mm.
what blows up the connection and the love and the honoring, and go, okay, wait a second. Instead of he's a jerk or she's an idiot or they're narcissistic or they're whatever, typical Leo, right? Instead of
Right.
that, going, okay, what if there's a good reason for that? Let's find out what it is. And something that's shocking to women is, I teach women to assume that and then ask, okay, I'm sure you had a good reason for what you did, but I'm utterly confused and
Mm.
reacting poorly. Could you unpack it for me? Could you reveal it to me?
Mm.
Because the reasons you do what you do are totally obvious to you. And men say all the time, there's no point in stating the obvious. In other
Right.
words, don't waste time and energy stating the obvious. And this is a big difference between men and women. Men are acutely aware of the passage of time and the expenditure of energy. The more a woman is connected to her femininity and therefore has this has this constant link to the spiritual, we live in the eternal where there's an infinite amount of time and energy, so everything is worth doing.
Yeah.
And and so again, we're opposites. And ay ay ay.
It's funny,
It's
there's
just
so much in what you're saying that puts a spotlight on the importance of curiosity. And
yes.
and I was advising men that the best way possibly to learn about women is Well, two things. One, to just engage with the female psyche, have relationships with women beyond your partnership relationship. I've always had the benefit of having great friendships with women and engage with work that comes from women. Like, a
Mm.
lot of men don't listen to music that's made or performed by women. They don't watch TV shows or movies made for or by women. They don't, read books by women. And there's so much to be learned there. But that's just sort of all external stuff. Metaphorically, I say it's about being a good tourist because it's like going to a foreign country. The classic bad American tourist is like the tourist that goes to some country and like, where's my hamburger and why are these people kneeling on the ground and
Yeah.
is should I what I can't tip, versus the good tourist is somebody who has like goodwill
Right.
and openness and curiosity, really, right? This I want to learn your ways and I want to honor your ways. And so I'm grateful for that element in your work because I think it also does translate to this day-to-day in the moment thing. Like I'm curious about what you want from me in this interaction and I want you to express it. I'm inviting that. And women, it's so evident in your work that women and men can invite each other within these different modes, but it's an invitation and a curiosity. I wonder if there's something that you observe in this present moment in the world culturally. Like so much of your work, I think, and of great self-transformational work is kind of universal. It's timeless, and I see this in your work. But we are always in a given particular cultural moment, and there's a lot of dialogue about the challenges men in particular face. Can you speak to that a little bit? What, in terms of you've been doing this for decades, what do you see happening now that is new or different or maybe more pronounced for men? And what's your take on it or healing remedy?
Wow. Um, you probably know curiosity comes from the Greek word that means to care. And one man coined what I teach as how to go from furious to curious. And um, and that's why I proposed the question, what if no one's misbehaving,
Mm,
including you?
mm,
What if we could be curious? Okay, so then what? And the thing that I was starting to say before is that so I started saying to men, I'm sure you have a good reason for this. Could you unpack it for me? Could you reveal it to me? Help me understand. And one time I said that to a man, I'm sure you have a good reason for what you did. And he went, nah, I was just being an ass.
oh, wow. Interesting.
And yes, and it was just the best part about it was women think that men won't acknowledge wrongdoing,
Mm,
but they don't know they paint men into a corner that if he acknowledges wrongdoing, it's going to be used against him forever.
mm,
We've taught you that by using it against you
right.
forever. And since I wasn't attacking him, I was granting good reason, he could out himself,
Mm,
right? And it was one of the few times that men use the word safe. They'll talk about safe in terms of the people they care about are safe, like during the fires a year ago, you know, all my
yeah,
family is safe.
yeah.
Or men will say she's safe to talk to,
Mm,
or my wife's not safe to talk to.
mm,
And being safe to talk to, that is a series of victories of human spirit for
mm,
women.
mm.
We're not made safe to talk to. And, but it's one of the biggest things I've been teaching for more than 30 years. And if a woman practices being safe to talk to, oh my gosh. I mean, it's a treasure trove. You guys just open the chest
Right.
and it's extraordinary. And I one of the things on our website on Shop Products is it's called Why You Can't Trust Men to Tell the Truth. And I produced that event when I gotten to the point where instead of just seeking people who were receptive to my message, like our workshop originally was called Celebrating Men, Satisfying Women,
Mm-hmm.
and it put off men who wanted to belittle women, women who wanted to belittle men. It
Right.
just put them off. They were not interested. But I got strong enough in interacting with their wounds and their beliefs that I now could poke the bear. And so I had something called using anger to get what you need on purpose to attract women who did use anger and women
Right.
who wanted to use anger.
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole thing was about how it doesn't work. In fact,
Love it.
it
Bait and
taints.
switch for their own good.
Yes, yes.
Right.
And so why you can't trust men to tell the truth. When I advertised that, my graduates were like, "What happened to Allison?" They freaked out.
Right.
And we sent an email to all the men on our mailing list, and the subject was Allison still has your back.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, she just had this event, and the subtitle could be How Women Teach Honest Men It's Not Worth It. Because we do, we
Right.
use your truth against you, and we think if you know how upset we are about your truth, you'll change your truth. But you're smart enough to know that's been true for you for decades. And the only thing that got you in this pickle was you told it to her.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
was the mistake. And women try to motivate men through upsets because women are motivated by people being upset.
Mm.
We do everything we can to avoid upsetting people. But those are our instincts as the smaller and weaker sex.
Mm.
So to your original question, what's happening now? I mean, I thought decades ago when the rules and the game, when those two books were published, the game as in how to use women's
Yeah.
instincts against them to
Right.
seduce
Right.
them,
All that negging and
and
stuff. Yeah.
and the rules how to manipulate men into marriage. I thought that was the bottom of the barrel.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had hashtag me too, which I thought was the bottom of the barrel because of all the false accusations that emerged and all the shame that good men were feeling for not protecting us from that deep, deep shame that men felt. And so I thought that was the bottom of the barrel. And now watching, because I do participate with leaders in the men's movement
Mm-hmm.
and in what they call men's work.
Mm.
So I don't know if you're familiar with the new warrior course that's produced by the Mankind Project, which is
Yeah. A little
international and
bit.
has been around for decades.
Yeah.
I know I get to interact with leaders in the Mankind Project, and I so appreciate my husband and my nephew both did the new warrior training,
Mm-hmm.
which is based on those instincts to protect and to fight for. And how do you upgrade that into a
Mm.
higher level of consciousness? And 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 unfortunately, separate from there's men's work, right, which is about
Right.
elevating the consciousness and the lives of men. There's the men's movement, and there's a portion of the men's movement that is committed to not needing women,
Yeah. That's.
like
Well,
totally rejecting the need for women. Well, but why would you do that? Men naturally need women. They know they need women.
yeah.
Women took on not needing men. Why? For the same reasons. We're both so frustrated
Mm-hmm.
in our ability to get what we need from each other.
Yeah.
So our cure is don't need anything from them. Well, that's not my cure. In, I mean, in understanding men, in the Queen's Code, it spells out how do you help a man give you what you need?
Right.
Because if he cares about you, which means you haven't displaced his ability to care by overwhelming him with sexual energy and skin and activating his most primitive instinct, which displaces his ability to care. If you haven't done that, which is what Making Sense of Men is about, by the way, the only nonfiction I've produced. And it, as a book anyway, everything else are audio recordings because I'm way
Right.
more verbal.
Right.
Um, it's funny you said you were surprised about the spiritual aspect because Keys of the Kingdom and the Queen's Code are both channeled works. I
Yeah,
didn't
no,
write.
I want to be clear. I wasn't surprised by it. I
Ah,
feel like it's such a strong element that you sometimes, I don't want to say nefariously cloak, but you translate it into language that's palatable to people that wouldn't maybe respond to spiritual talk. And so when you talk about
yes,
the woman needing to be rebooted, there's all this computer stuff or my
yes.
feelings live in this place, but I'm hearing it as a person who's sort of spiritually attuned and
Oh,
inquisitive. I hear the spiritual element. So it's not that I was surprised to encounter it, but I think it's very prevalent, and I'm just amazed by your ability to transmit that in a way that in a sort of secular
ah,
communication. Yeah, so I think it's very valuable.
yeah, thank you. I just have absolute respect for people's pursuit of the spiritual and where that encounters or doesn't encounter religions and the truths, the real eternal truths at the heart
Mm,
of virtually every religion. And then there's just really different needs and practices that are fulfilled
yeah.
by different religions. And I it's one of the first things I learned about men with testosterone and a committed state of mind, right? So that single focus is the natural way to go about things for most men until you get older and it's happening to you. You're gaining some diffuse awareness,
Right.
which gives you access to your wisdom. The verbal centers are now connecting to the other parts of the brain.
Mhm.
And but to notice that we're a woman, we literally can just decide, okay, let's bring in the sacred. Boom.
Mm,
We're it's right there.
yeah.
Whereas what a man will do is he'll interact with spaces.
Mm,
So a physical space that's conducive to focusing on the spiritual,
right.
right? And they'll either be austere beautiful or extravagant beautiful, but there will
Hmm.
be beauty in it because you guys taught me this. Beauty reminds you of the spiritual. Beauty
Hmm.
is spiritual. It's why you find it in nature. It's why you
Right.
find it in the radiance of a woman, right? The sparkle in her eyes.
Hmm.
And but you cause yourself to have a physical space, a time space that you have plenty of time. It happens every Saturday or every Sunday or every Friday night, right? This is the time for that spiritual and that it's something to be respected, right? We have different
Mm,
ways to access, but it's a rare person that isn't at least tickled by, tempted by, whispered to, and by the spiritual and feeling the yearning
mm,
of their own spirit to connect at that greater level. And I just said I'm more of an integrator, right? Like
yeah.
instead of excluding any part of ourselves,
Yeah.
how can we bring it together? And we have a course called Extraordinary Choices, which teaches the elements of partnership. There's 14 elements of partnership. And it starts with that the heart of partnership is you plus you. And that we can't partner better with anybody else than we're partnering with ourselves.
Right.
And we've been talking about this from the very beginning. Essentially what we've got to do is partner instinct and higher consciousness. We can't
Mm,
if we invalidate and make wrong our instincts, which it happens all the time, people are denigrated for just instinctual behavior instead of having understanding and compassion of it, and then making that awareness. So then there's the chance for the conscious choice. Like we literally have to partner within ourselves in every way: instinct, higher consciousness, openness, and committed state of mind, right? Connectivity and productivity. Like we ultimately, we've got to negotiate all of these with as much awareness as possible to choose. Like when I go see my mother this afternoon, what is going to have the best effect that I intend?
Right.
It will not be productivity. It will be connectivity and compassion and listening with the question, what's real for her?
Right.
And which is a discipline, right?
Yeah.
Utterly failed yesterday. I was being productive yesterday and blew the thing to smithereens. Which is what happens to a woman when you don't give her enough time.
Uh-huh.
That's what will switch a woman from connected to productive, is a dead line, aptly named.
Well, that reminds me of the thing you talked about, women preparing to go out, and if you give a woman a deadline, you get a man with makeup on going to the party with you instead of, so that was very funny.
I can tell you were paying really close attention. So
Oh yeah,
thank
well,
you
I
for
mean,
that.
your work resonates with me. I don't. It's hard for me to pay attention if I feel like I'm not being given wisdom, and I
Yes.
feel like I've learned so much from your work. And if I had my druthers, I would. If I were the Secretary of Education in this country, and if that department still exists, I would. I would commission you to create a college course about men and women for men and women. It would be required core curriculum for freshmen coming in, and I think the world would be a better place.
Well,
Um,
actually, Cal State Northridge,
mhm.
not that far from you.
Okay.
One of the people that I have taught to teach my work,
Hmm.
she's a professor there, and she has a course for which the Queen's Code is one of the texts. So that's happening a
It's
teeny
happening.
tiny
Good. It
bit.
is.
Yes.
That's great. Yeah, it just
Okay.
gives me so much hope. Thank you for sharing so generously your time, your wisdom, this flow to this conversation. I barely looked at questions I had, and I'm sure I'll go back and think, oh, I wish I'd said this or asked this, but it's been so rich just sharing some time with you and getting your downloads in the moment and introducing my audience to what you do. So thank you so much for that.
You're most welcome. And keep going. Keep going with what you're doing. It matters. I am a messenger, and there are so many people who can't hear me.
Mm.
And there are people who will be able to hear you that wouldn't have been able to hear anybody else. So it matters so much that you are speaking. And just thanks. I'm glad to be on the same team with you.
I appreciate that, and I
Enjoy.
appreciate that's very affirming to me that you consider us on the same team because I see so much alignment in your work. And as I said, I've also learned so much from you. So thank you for that ongoing enrichment, and I'm happy to be in touch with you. And I'm looking forward to getting this episode out to my peoples. Thank you all for listening. Please follow the podcast. Please review it favorably if you feel so inclined. Follow me on Instagram at Omega Male Podcast. To read my various written pieces, please also subscribe to my Substack account at omegamale.substack.com. Email me at omegamalesays@gmail.com. That's Omega Male, S-A-Y-S. Omega Male Says. And for you tweeters, my X account is at Omega Male Says. Take care until next time. Thanks for your support.